Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning as we are trying to put some clarity to what is a bit of a confusing situation right now with some of the aid that's out there or pending aid that might be coming for small businesses. And we are fortunate enough to have Danny Fitzgerald. I've listened to a couple of his presentations, and I think he's going to really add some clarity and help for us. And he'll be also taking questions out of the chat room that we'll convey over to him. So as Chris Cochran said, welcome everyone and Happy New Year. It's 2021. We're all looking forward to a new year and a new start. And we're going to roll right into that and have Danny take it from here. Danny, you want to give us the intro and give us a start, please?
Absolutely. So I appreciate it. Thanks, JR, and thank you to the Escondido Chamber. My name's Danny Fitzgerald. I'm with the San Diego Imperial Small Business Development Center. We are, of course, a regional program. We have a number of our partner locations throughout the county, including for North County, our office in Carlsbad, that's part of Mira Costa College. So happy to be here. Just kind of a quick FYI on who the SBDC is. Of course, we're funded and chartered by the U.S. Small Business Administration. We're equally funded by the state of California. And that's because we're here to be able to provide free services, free advising services, free training services to small businesses, so that way they can really be able to grow their businesses in regular times and, of course, survive all of the craziness that's been through the pandemic. So Happy New Year to all. So I'm going to share my screen. And so just as an overview of what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to first just kind of touch a little bit. I'm going to do it fairly quickly on the new federal stimulus law. The reason I'm going to touch on that fairly quickly is because most of that isn't relevant as of today. Maybe relevant as of about a week from now, but not as of today. Then the main thing I'm going to talk about is the California Relief Grant, because that program, the round one application, is open as of now. It closes on Wednesday of next week. It's not first come, first serve. It's just something you have to get in by Wednesday. They're not even going to review applications until after the round closes. So that's why you want to make sure you do it completely, you do it accurately, and so forth. So I'll also, if some of you have been trying that, there have been some glitches with some of the technology. As of today, they said they're supposed to have pretty much most of those resolved. That's why they extended the deadline from Friday to next week. So those are just some couple things at the top. I'm going to share my screen and kind of go through a series of things here. So I want to talk about the federal stimulus. Of course, we all know, if you've been paying attention to some of what's out there, you've heard that the law passed, the president signed it just after Christmas. And so I'm going to touch a little bit on this. You can actually see a little bit higher level briefing on this on our website, which is sdivsbdc.org. And if you look at the COVID-19, you can see information on both of the programs I'm going to talk about today. So real quick is PPP. I'm sure lots of you have heard that it's going to reopen. It is not reopen as of today. That's really, really important. The SBA is going to update the rules because a few things have changed, not a lot, just a little bit in terms of a few things. The main one is if you did not get a PPP loan between April and August when it was opened last year, 2020's last year now, you certainly are eligible to apply. Businesses or nonprofits, and now that also includes 501c6s, so the Chamber of Commerce can now apply, they weren't able to before, can receive a PPP as well. And of course, ones that did receive it, they can demonstrate at least a 25% loss in revenue during 2020 as compared to 2019 can apply for and receive a second PPP loan. Those are some of the rules that they're working on, how that's demonstrated, what that really means, things like that. So, certainly you'll be able to look at what your books look like. It's from what the law is written, it's saying it's going to be a quarter to quarter comparison, but we really need to wait until the SBA has the final rules. So a couple quick things is that it is a smaller loan and for smaller businesses, can't exceed the previous PPP could be up to 10 million. These can't exceed 2 million. And the previous ones could be for up to 500 employees. This is up to 300 employees. And then other than that, they'll work basically the same. Loans 2.5 times monthly payroll. The 60% has to be, at least 60% must be used on payroll costs, etc. The one extra thing that's on that is businesses in hospitality, accommodation, food services, those impacted industries, they can actually receive up to a 3.5 times monthly payroll. So the restaurants that have been really heavily impacted, that's really good news for them. And like I said, 501c6s who spend less than 15% on their lobbying are also eligible. Real quick on the forgiveness, really what it boils down to is two things. Number one is the EIDL advance. So that was the grant, the like $1,000 to $10,000 you received, you didn't have to pay back. That was going to impact your PPP forgiveness. Now it will not. And then loans that are less than $150,000 will be forgiven following the completion of a one-page form. It's going to be a simple self-certification. So most banks have just pressed a giant pause button on all of the forgiveness because they were waiting for this law to pass, knowing things were going to get update. And so there's going to be a whole bunch of updates on forgiveness for your prior PPP loans. So don't sweat it. You're okay. Just keep in communication with your lender if they want you to do something. A couple of quick tax implications. The main one is that PPP is for sure non-taxable. There was some confusion with the CARES Act interpretation between Congress and the IRS. This law cleaned that up. And then the other one, this is a big one, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is going to be that the PPP loan no longer precludes a small business from claiming the employee retention credit. That is a big, big deal. So this is going to have major positive tax implications for you as a small business owner if you have employees. So make sure you're able to talk to your tax professional, your tax preparer about the employee retention tax credit. Real quick, the economic injury disaster loans reopened. That'll be available all the way through December 31st if someone did not receive that. The big one also is SBA debt relief. So if you have an existing SBA loan prior to the pandemic, you probably were able to enjoy the advantage of having principal and interest paid for by the SBA. That's going to extend again. So between February 1st and September 30th, 2021, there will be some pretty significant amounts of benefits for you as well. Real quick on the employee retention tax credit, I want to get into details about this, but make sure you pay attention to it because like it says, it's significant. It's a 50% tax credit for the first $10,000 of compensation. That means $5,000 tax credit per employee that you kept on during the pandemic. That can be a big deal. So let's say you have 10 employees that you kept on, you probably paid them more than $10,000, you probably have a $50,000 tax credit. That is nice. And that's full carry forward. And so it also will extend through 2021 and actually increases on a quarterly basis. So you're keeping your employees. So as you're doing, so again, talk to your tax preparer as you're making plans for 2021. Last but not least, you probably heard of the program for live venues. This is very specific for live venues such as movie theaters, live theaters, concert venues, things like that that have been fully shuttered since the pandemic. They will be eligible for a grant. The SBA will be most likely administering this program. I don't foresee these grants coming out probably until February. Just know the timing for all the rulemaking. So that's real quick on the relief grant and on the federal stimulus, but I want to spend a little bit more time because this is what's open now. This is the California Relief Grant. About just over a month ago, Governor Newsom announced this program of the $500 million for grants for small businesses. Yesterday, he talked about hopefully being able to expand this, but that's going to be the will of the legislature. And so this is the program where you're able to receive up to $25,000 for your small business, and it's a grant, it's not a loan. So it's just money you receive. So like the grants that the county was doing last year, or some of the cities were doing last year, this is a grant. It's not something you have to repay, but there is an application process. So real quick, the grant itself is $5,000 to $25,000 based upon your gross revenue, not your profit, but your gross revenue. So it's the big number. So that's your total cash receipts, etc. You'll be able to find some information at it, and I'm going to show that website and kind of go through a few things on it, which is californiareliefgrant.com, and then that's our website as well. You can also and this is where you'll actually be able to go to apply. I'll kind of show what that means. It says you have to quote unquote apply through a partner. There's some confusion around that. What that means is basically that's kind of where the portals are. Of course, we're providing you information. Maybe you also got information from CDC Small Business Finance. Maybe you also got information from another organization. It doesn't matter who you apply through. It's not going to impact you in which way or the other. It's just it's a strategy of the state to increase awareness of providers like the Small Business Development Center, Women's Business Centers, and other programs like that we're here to assist businesses at no cost and are funded by the state. Real quick, the base eligibility. These are kind of the really big 2 points. Number one is you have gross revenue in 2019 between at least $1,000 and no more than $2.5 million. So if you had gross revenue above $2.5 million, you're not eligible. This really is targeting the smaller businesses. And number two is you have to be able to demonstrate. You demonstrate that through either a business license, et cetera, that you have been in operations at least since June 1st, 2019. That's a hard cutoff. And so that does, I realize, impact a number of businesses that may be started after that date. It is what it is. That's what the state has decided. And as I said at the top, really, really important, it is not a first come, first serve. All you have to do is get your application in and complete by that date, January 13th, 11:59 p.m., because they're not even going to review the applications until then. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means in terms of it. I'm actually going to shift over here, bring a web browser in, and be able to talk about it. This is what the website looks like when you go to CaliforniaReliefGrant.com. And so if you go down here, a couple of things I'm going to show. So what it means, apply through a partner. So we'll go through that real quick. And so you just scroll down, or you can use the link that I provided you. It would get you the same place. Click San Diego. So of course, here we are, which is the Small Business Development Centers. You click Apply Now. And then this brings you here. So the first place you would start is actually here, which is click here to apply. This is where later today, if you've already done the first part of the application, you'll come back and you'll do some document uploads. And so that's what this particularly looks like. When you click here to apply, you'll see here kind of what the program works. It's kind of in 2 parts. So if the chamber was applying, they'd apply down here on the grants for nonprofits. Your business will apply here, the grants for profits. The first thing you're going to want to do is download this certification form. It's a 4-page document because there's a lot of different certifications. You don't have to necessarily print this. You can actually type your initials in each one of the sections, read them, answer it honestly, then you type your name where it also says, and then save it. You will be uploading it through that portal I just showed you sometime after this afternoon when that part goes live, along with some of the other documentation, which includes here kind of some of that. The bank verification will not have to happen until after you've received a tentative award. So you do not have to complete that information until they say, we intend to award you. Then of course, they're going to want to verify your bank information because, well, they want to make sure you get the money and it doesn't go to someone else's account. And so that certainly makes sense. So I'm going to go through fairly quick some of what the process is and then be able to answer your questions. So kind of goes through the application, I call it a 1A and 1B. So you kind of the application, which is kind of the online stuff, which is a lot of information about your business and that you'll be able to provide and be able to complete that. That's kind of 1A. Then it will give you the certification that that's complete, along with then your access to the user portal, which is what I showed previously. Then the 1B is the document collection. So the documents that are required are your 2019 or 2018 tax returns, your federal tax returns, and it's the entire return for your business. So it's not just your Schedule C, it's the whole 1040, for example. And then the other one is, of course, a copy of just a picture of a government issued photo ID. Fraud prevention, yes, this is me. So I just take a picture of my driver's license. Yep, I'm Daniel Fitzgerald, this is me, I'm a real person. Then, of course, then the other one would be the certification form, which I talked about. And last would be evidence that you are in business, which could be your articles of incorporation or your Escondido business license, or you're filing from the County of San Diego for your fictitious business name. That completes the application. Then they are reviewed starting on January 14th, and then that's for round 1. Then if you're approved, then you go through kind of a quick validation process. Again, they may ask for some other quick information. Predominantly, they're going to verify your bank account, so that way you can get the money to your bank account. That's important. You don't want it to go to some other person's bank account. And then, of course, you complete a grant agreement and a W-9. If you are not approved but are still eligible, you will be waitlisted and automatically rolled to round 2. Round 2 is going to open probably sometime in February. If you're deemed not eligible, you'll be notified as well. So let's say, for example, a company applies that has $10 million in revenue, they'll just be deemed not eligible. Or a company applies from Kansas, they'd be deemed not eligible. So talk briefly about the program. I'm going to go through this fairly quick because I want to talk about the application itself. But the main thing is that there's 2 rounds of the funds. And so the first round is going to be the 237.5 million, same thing for round 2. So real quick, how this works is the program is funded by the state of California. They've contracted Lendistry. They are a nonprofit lender. They are what's called a community development financial institution. They're based in Los Angeles, but they have developed quite a bit of proprietary technology. But this is, of course, an extremely large program, but they are able to kind of manage some of that. So that's really what it is. We're here to provide the technical assistance along with our partners. Other ones here in San Diego include our Women's Business Center, as well as another lender similar to Lendistry called TDC, Small Business Finance. Kind of talked about the eligibility. Really boils down to a couple simple things. Like I said, the June 1st, the under $2.5 million, at least $1,000. And then a couple other quick things is if you don't have a social security number and you are what's called an I-10 user, let's say you are a recent migrant to the United States, you may not have a social security number yet, you have an I-10 as well. Those are eligible. And so that's really what it boils down to. So the revenue, like it says, is based upon your IRS tax form. So that would be on your 1120, your 1120S, your 1040 Schedule C, your 1065, or for nonprofits, your 990s. What's ineligible? Really, you're not in California, you're not eligible, you're not actually in business prior to June 1st, 2019, you can't demonstrate as such, you're not eligible. Adult entertainment's not eligible. Businesses that engage in any type of activity that's illegal under federal, state, or local law, that's an important distinction. So that would exclude some of our cannabis businesses. Then you would also be for anyone that has at least a 10% equity, so at least someone who's a 10% owner of the business that in the last 3 years has either had a civil judgment or a conviction in a criminal offense. So that's probably one of the more common ones as well. One thing that's important, what these kind of mean here at the bottom, the last 2 bullet points, is it's really 1 grant per business owner / business. What that means is, let's say I have a franchise and I have 3 McDonald's. And I'm old, and so, but I cannot get a grant for each of those McDonald's, even though they are separate LLCs. I can only get 1 grant for Danny Fitzgerald, owner of these 3 McDonald's, as an individual owner / business. And so that's an important to understand. So I know there's a number of folks that may have multiple business entities, but it's 1 per applicant. Use of funds is pretty straightforward. Use it for your business operations. Don't just use it for something like back taxes, back judgments, or just paying away for your employees a bonus or severance. So the question is on how people are determined. So really, they're going to look at it kind of 4 factors for the priorities that they're making. Number 1 is they're targeting geographic areas that are heavily impacted by the pandemic. Well, the numbers don't lie. We know San Diego is heavily impacted. We're one of the more impacted areas of the state. Number 2 is based on your gross revenue losses. So in the application, it asks these 2 questions. What were your gross revenues between April and September of 2019? And compare them to your gross revenue from April through September 2020. Why doesn't it include the 4th quarter? A lot of people's 4th quarters haven't closed yet. That's why. So that's the comparison there. The 3rd is obviously the industries that have been more heavily impacted. Think hair salons, barbershops, beauty salons, nail salons, etc., restaurants, food, hospitality, health and wellness, all of those types of things. So like gyms. So those industries that are more heavily impacted also have priority. And last is the underserved business group. So women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses, or businesses that are located in low-income communities. So that's based on rural communities. So there are certainly portions of Escondido that would qualify as such. Talked about the grant, talked a little bit about the documentation. I want to get straight into the application a little bit. A couple quick tips, these are good, is use Google Chrome. Much easier. I know I have Firefox open right now, but I'm not applying. So use Google Chrome as the browser. Also, for your email address, don't just have it a generic email address for your company. Have it say, for example, it needs to at least say James Roden at Escondido Chamber, info at Escondido Chamber, for example. And then make sure you scan your documents properly. So I love these pictures. These are ugly scans. So you definitely don't want, showing that you're wearing a pair of shorts and have your Adidas logo or your carpet or your window. Make sure it's a good, clean scan. So for the application certification, like I said, you'll get that, download that certification. Make sure you read the certification. You can complete it by typing that information in there with your initials. So I'm just fly through there. As of today, if you've already started the application, you're able to log in. That's where you'll start seeing these types of things where it says what you've got pending for it in terms of for the completed status of your application. So, or it would say incomplete. So there's going to be two different, or it will say complete. Those are kind of the three types of status. And again, what's critical is you do not have to enter your bank information until you've been approved for the grant. So if that looks like you have to, the answer is no, you do not have to. So like I said, you go through, you find the grant, showed you that you're a for-profit business, then you start with your application. So so this is the 1A part of the application. So this is all the just form field online, nothing's printed. You don't say, this is just literally a form field fill out that you do on your computer and be able to do that. Again, use Google Chrome. So again, it's just basic information, your name, email, etc., and the zip code. This basically enters you into the system. I do recommend saying yes to the texting. That's because it just kind of gives you an extra part of verification that you'll be able to get if you're awarded a grant or if Lendistry needs to communicate with you. That way, if something ends up in spam, or as we all know, sometimes email can fail in these times. The next is the owner information. So this is the applicant. So if you have a partnership, only one owner would be completing it. So let's say there's 3 of us that are partners. We're a 40-30-30 split. I'm the 40% owner. I probably should be completing the application. If it's, say, for example, a husband and wife completing it, and it's an even split between you, just one of you completes it with your name and information. And so you will have to include up to your birth date, your social security number. That's to identify you are you. That's all for fraud prevention. That's what that's for. Yes, they will do a soft pull on your credit, but that literally is to validate you are you. It's purely fraud prevention. That's what they want to be able to do. And the percentage of ownership. Obviously, you're the owner, you're the company, no one else is. It's 100%. Husband and wife, probably a 50-50 split. And then, or if you have others, then you do have to accept the terms and conditions to be able to go forward. Obviously, feel free to definitely read those on how they impact you. Then you're providing a little bit more information on the business. So you do need to complete everything that has a star. All these fields are required. If you don't have them, so say, for example, you actually do your business as the actual name of the business, you just type none in the DBA portion. That's fine. Same thing with website. If you don't have a website, it's not a problem. Just type none.com. It's not going to impact you whatsoever, but it will not let you go forward unless you have something in there. Of course, you'll also complete your EIN. That's of course, the one from the IRS. If you do not use an EIN, you can put in your social security number. So if you do not have an EIN from the IRS, you put in your social security number. And then the business type is a pull-down menu, find the one that fits you best. So what that would be is, for example, I'm a sole proprietor with employees. So say, for example, I fill out a 1040 Schedule C, that makes me a sole proprietor. If I am incorporated as a C corporation, obviously a corporation. If I'm an LLC, an LLC. And then, of course, the state, if you are incorporated. If you're a sole proprietor, the answer is California. Then, obviously, the business start date, that's when the business did open. Obviously, you have to be in operation prior to June 1st, 2019 to be eligible for the grant. The next is a couple of simple basic things, which is the purpose of the grant. Pick the one that applies best to you. Recognize that maybe it's like you're going to use it to pay your rent, you're going to use it to pay your payroll, or if it's just other working capital, feel free to select other. The amount requested is, again, based upon what you're eligible for, which is this one here, which is your annual revenue. That annual revenue question right there is, what was your 2019 annual revenue on your tax return? So for example, I'm a sole proprietor. I completed a 1040 Schedule C. That's on line 3. Subsequently, on the other types of ones for an LLC or a corporation, they have similar places where that information would be. Question on, will this grant create new jobs? Basically, by staying open, are you going to rehire somebody or hire somebody new? Answer that honestly. It won't impact you if you say no. Then put your actual employee count for full-time and part-time employees. Don't worry heavily about the distinction between the two. Just answer that to the best of your ability. What would be the difference between a full and a part-time? And then the number that you put in there for the number of full and part-time, Add that together, and that is the number of jobs retained. Number of jobs created is if you intend to hire in 2021. Only that. Probably the vast majority of you will put 0. Then the next section is the business demographics. So first is, who do you sell to? I sell to other businesses, B2B. I sell to customers. I have a retail store or a restaurant. I'm business to consumer. Maybe I sell to both. Maybe I'm a carpet cleaning company and I have both corporate clients and I clean the carpets of houses. That would be a both situation. Then there's going to be 2 pull-down menus here for the type of business. There's a lot of square peg round hole situations with some of these. These are very broad. Pick what best applies to you. If you feel like nothing even comes close, you do have the option for selecting unknown, because what it really comes down to is you're going to have to do what's called your NAICS code. If you've never done a NAICS code search before, this is kind of what it would particularly look like. So this is the NAICS site. I'll actually start here right at the beginning. So it's NAICS.com. You go here, you click NAICS code search, and then you would enter the type of business that you have. Let's say I have a restaurant. Type that in, and then it gives me the actual number here. So that's the number you would input. So let's say, for example, I just have a quick sandwich shop and a deli, and so that's just a limited service restaurant. So I would be 722513. So that would be it as well. Another one might be auto repair. So for example, general automotive repair would be that number right there. And so that's how that would particularly work. So you would need to be able to do your NAICS search and put that in. That's really the important one. These help, these are more survey-based, but the NAICS code is really what's critical. So it also has the link there to be able to find your NAICS code, which takes you there to NAICS.com. My suggestion is figure it out before, especially you get some kind of strange ones out there. I had one that I talked to recently, kind of helping them find theirs, because they have a sailboat, they take it out on the bay and let people propose to, do wedding proposals on there. So we kind of had to figure out what that went. We went with boat charter. And so it was a little bit different. Then the demographics of the actual owner. So the actual applicant or at least 51% of the ownership. Is at least 51% of the ownership female? It would be women-owned. Is at least 50% veteran? Would be veteran-owned, etc. Disabled, race, ethnicity. Race is the race of the actual applicant. So if you're applying and you are African-American, you select African-American. And ethnicity is, of course, whether or not it boils down to Hispanic or non-Hispanic or non-Latino. Whether or not you're a franchise, as I talked about. So if I'm an owner of McDonald's, I would put yes. If I own Danny's Deli, I would put no. And then if you are rural. And so and rural really means is you're in a community that's under kind of 50,000. So let's say I don't know if some of you are on the phone, that you're in Ramona, you would actually be able to select yes. You're in Escondido, you'd be selecting no. Then the last section is their disclosures before you do the certification. And so really what these are is the first question is again about that at least 51% minority, veteran owned, etc. Answer that honestly. The next is, like I said, the 2 and the 3 are the comparisons of your revenue from 2019 and 2020 from April through September. Use your actuals. So if you're having trouble figuring out the actuals for what there are, the simple, easy cheat code is look at your bank statements for those months and what were your deposits. That would be your gross revenue. And another one for 2019, I did my tax return. I see that line 3 on my Schedule C. I can divide that by 12, multiply that by 6 to get my 2019. And 2020, I could look at my bank statements. The next 2 questions are purely kind of survey-based. You can answer those. The technical assistance is the type of support we provide. And so all that is purely just a kind of a survey-based question. Same thing in terms of a business loan. That's just because there's a number of nonprofit lenders. There's other programs out there that are being provided, such as what's called, the California Rebuilding Fund. There's other programs that are, that are also supported by quality nonprofit lenders and so forth. The last one is number 6. Is during the last 9 months, did you receive any emergency grants? And so if you received an EIDL, a PPP, one of the county grants, you select yes. Then it gets a little weird because you can only pick one. So the answer is pick one and answer that. So I only, if I received a PPP and a grant from the county, I'd pick one or the other and answer just that amount. So, because it only allows you to pick one. Then the final is the confirmation. And so after you've completed the confirmation, you'll be able to type yes. You do have to type yes in there, not your initials. You have to type the word yes. Then you click continue, and then that would take you from there. And then you receive 2 emails. Message from Lendistry saying received. And then the second is the portal account activation. So that's then moves you into part 1B. All of it to here is 1A. So that's the stuff you do strictly on the website. So as of today, later today, they'll be activating the portals. And so that's when you'll be able to go in and do your user and password. If you've done the 1A part prior and you've been frustrated by not being able to go into the portal, I apologize. Lendistry was a bit overwhelmed in terms of the number of applicants. And so what they did is they talked to the state, made the choice to extend the deadline to January 13th to give people extra time to ensure that then they fix the back end, which they've done or are doing as of now, working literally 24/7, and to get that working. So as of later today, you will be able to go in and upload your documents or kind of make the completeness of your application. So you get an email with the user, with the password, like anywhere else. I'm sure we've all used hundreds of these portals, and you'd be able to log in. Then you'd go in, you'd be able to see this here, like I showed before. You'd upload the documents. You do not have to do the bank information. I must reiterate that. You do not have to validate your bank. They'll probably be pulling that down as well. Then you're uploading your documents. And so you upload, like I said before, number one, the certification. Remember early on this step, you're downloading that 4-page form, you're typing your initials, your name, etc., and saving that. You upload that. Number two, copy of a picture or a scan of your driver's license or a passport, any government issued ID. Third is your 2019. If you don't have that, you can use your 2018 complete tax return. So that's your whole 1040. If you're a nonprofit, that could be your entire 990. And when I mean the whole thing, I mean the whole thing. There's some nonprofits that have 990s that are 300 pages long. You still need to upload the whole thing. So if you filed electronically with your tax preparer, most likely they emailed you a PDF copy of that. Get that. You don't have one right now. That's why you're getting prepared now to be able to get that piece of information. And then the third is going to be validation that you are in business. This could be a copy of your current Escondido business license or from whatever city you're in. Number two, your current articles of incorporation. That also would be something you would be able to upload to validate you are in business and were in business prior to June 1st, 2019. And so then once that you'd be able to upload that, you'd be able to see that they are all upload, and that's what you'd be able to do. Not going to get into linking your bank information because that doesn't apply yet. So lots of information, I realize. So got some time, got not quite 30 minutes, but let's answer some questions. I see we got a few here.
Sure.
I can go through them. Let's see. Will these slides be available later? So the slides I showed, if you go, again, let me share my screen real quick. So if you go to here and you click application guide, all business application guide, that'll have the slides. So again, California Relief Grant, all business application guide, and I'll email to the chamber also some of this information. Then number two is, okay, you said that they were doing that. Annual revenue net or gross, Paul asked, it is gross, so it's the big number. So on your 1040, Schedule C, it's your line 3, so it's your total gross revenue. Juan, so Juan Velasco, good to hear from you again. Juan, you used to work for SBDC a while back. So yes, so what it says is due to high demand, file uploads, etc. So like I was saying, when will they allow the upload? Later today. Why is the login not activated on the page? Because like I said, they've been updating the technology. They were overwhelmed with the demand. They talked with the state, made the decision to extend the deadline from January 8th to January 13th to give people time to be able to upload those. Don asks, the mailing address in Escondido, but businesses in Valley Centers are considered rural or does it even matter? I would put not rural still even in Valley Center. It's still kind of the general population. You really, San Diego, you pretty much have to be in some of those real rural communities like Julian, Campo, Ramona, that type. Most likely is they'd end up considering Valley Center since it's so close to all those areas, probably not rural. And so those are all the questions we have right now, JR. I don't know if anyone else has any others.
Hey, Danny, let me ask you this. Why the 2 rounds? What was the intent on that?
Mainly just in case people didn't have an opportunity in the first round. Let's say someone is, unavailable, didn't get the information in time, etc. I mean, as we all heard, really what it boils down to. So think that first round of PPP and kind of all that followed that, how they burned through $500 million, $500 billion, excuse me, at the federal level in a few weeks because of the huge flood. The banks were overwhelmed. They didn't know what to do. The SBA was overwhelmed. They didn't know what to do. They wanted to kind of avoid that problem. So that's why they're doing the 2 rounds. So that way, let's say I'm some, very small business. I'm just grinding away, say fixing cars, or doing something like that. And I just didn't see the information until, say, like Wednesday of next week. They want to make sure that I have the another opportunity to be able to apply.
Gotcha. And we have a good question here also from Pat Hunter. Will the receipt of county grant negatively impact this application?
No, they purely are just seeing what other people have received, and they want to check it. So it will not negatively. So again, answer honestly all the questions.
Yeah. So the big difference here is one of the differences is the inclusion of the nonprofits.
Right. So nonprofits are eligible to apply. So C3s, C6s, and C19s. C3s, of course, are your general nonprofits like the food bank. C6s are like the chamber. C19s are veteran serving organizations. And the key is, so I did, for the nonprofits, I did a webinar yesterday with San Diego Foundation for them. And if you look at our social media, I posted links to that YouTube and some of the foundation.
Yeah, great. Well, Danny, I think you really answered a succinct presentation that was really on point here. So we really appreciate you sharing that information. I think you've answered most all the other questions that we had that were posted in here so far. So with that, is there anything else? I really appreciate you also explaining the SIC and the NAICS codes, because that's one
if you've never done it, it's confusing. And there's going to be businesses, like the common question I get is, I do 2 things. So like an example may be, all right, let's say I'm a chiropractor, but I also sell like supplements or other types of equipment. Well, you're kind of 2 things. What is the majority of your business? Probably a chiropractor office. And so I type in chiropractor. And so that's really what you'd want to do for that. So Paul asked, can a CPA apply for this for me, or do I have to do it myself? They can, but I'd highly recommend you do it. It's not that tricky to be able to do. I do recommend it, but yes, a CPA can, but everything has to come through your email address. And then I see Mona ask, can we qualify even if we did get a PPP? Yes, you do qualify.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Danny, I think with that being said, we appreciate you taking the time this morning to jump on here and share this great information with us. It can all be a little confusing, but I like the way you also recapped what is going on the different levels. So right. In the past, there was some county grant monies that were coming through the CARES Act. Can you explain that? That's not
right. So the county money that came through, so this is different money. I'm not 100%, so this is kind of a combination of a little bit of CARES money that the state received, but a lot of just state general fund money that's through the California Office of Emergency Services. So what happens is that there is a pool of money that exists. So in the event of a disaster, so that could be fires, floods, or pandemics, that the executive has at their disposal. And so that's where a significant portion of these funds come from, are funds specifically for emergency response that California has, that the executive has at their disposal. And so the executive, the governor, made the decision that part of this disaster is small business recovery, and as such, use those funds. There are some of the remaining state funds from CARES that are part of this, but so it's kind of an odd mix. And so that's really what really is. So Paul asked, the PPP in California are two different fund sources. Yes, they are. The PPP was a specifically identified fund source through the CARES Act. And then other CARES dollars are local CARES dollars granted to state and local governments like the county. So the county received a large portion of funding from the CARES Act as part of just their general use. So for example, a school district also received portions of that funding, and you had limitations on what you could use the funding for, but it had to be used in terms of response for COVID. So for example, if a school district received it, maybe they're paying for a whole bunch of laptops for the teachers, right? Clear response, clear need, because they're needing to do online education. Well, the county and subsequently also cities, such as the city of San Diego, since they were large enough to actually receive the distribution from the CARES Act, or the county, of course, gave that money also to a number of cities. The county board of supervisors also made the decision, same thing, like the state, saying with this disaster, small business recovery is a significant portion of this. So they made the decision to have those grants that went through each of the county supervisor offices. And so that program is pretty much wrapped up in terms of what they've been able to distribute. They kept squeezing that pretty hard. They increased it. They had the extra 20 million for restaurants, then kind of targeted some additional underserved businesses. But from the communication I've got from the county is that's pretty much gone. Will there be, JR asked me, will there be anything else from the county? At this point in time, I haven't heard of anything else. Doesn't preclude anything else, but I think from my conversations with at least some of the supervisor offices is that kind of they want to, they're helping me promote the California Relief Grant. So I know, Supervisor Fletcher's talked about it more than once in his briefings that he does on COVID-19, and so really kind of helping get the word out of the California Relief Grant, and then the next round of federal stimulus, and kind of let that be the part that's helping small businesses right now. Which was good was the county came in after PPP ran out. There wasn't anything coming from the state, and then the county was able to step in during the summer. And so that's kind of when you look at how it's worked from a calendar standpoint.
Super. And again, I think everybody got kind of alerted that PPP was pending or coming out again.
Right.
That is not enacted yet, right?
No, it's not released yet. It's enacted by Congress and by the president, but what's happening right now is the SBA is updating the rules and regulation. Then they communicate that information to banks and lenders, and then the banks and lenders turn the switch on. And being that, if you remember early April, the kind of mess it was, I'm sure we all experienced that. I know I did, and every business I talked to experienced it, and every bank I talked to experienced it. They're trying to minimize some of that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, great. Well, again, Danny, we really appreciate your time here. I don't think there's any other questions. You really did a great job of presenting and giving us some succinct information and help. We'll also look forward to relying and keeping in touch with you for future questions, and perhaps get you on another Zoom call if there's some other things that need to be clarified and some help that we could use. We certainly rely on the SBDC and all the great work that you folks do. And congratulations for getting us this far. This will be
Absolutely.
a big help and a stimulus to a lot of the small businesses that are really hurting, won't it?
Absolutely. No, we know that small businesses are very much so impacted, and as if things get kind of unique or we need some additional assistance, happy to come on another call for when all the federal programs actually turn on.
Sure. Great. All right then, Danny, thank you very much. We'll do a little bit of housekeeping here. I just want to make sure, everybody aware. First of all, we thank you for attending. We thank the board members that also attended. We think our board chair was on with some really good questions also, Mr. Don Romo. I do want to talk about something we do have coming up for next week. We're looking at next Tuesday on our government affairs meeting that'll be held at 9 a.m. It'll be a Zoom also. We're going to have Cecilia Caitlin with the U.S. Department of Treasury, IRS Senior Liaison. This will be talking about upcoming tax season, some of the COVID-19 impact and what that might look like. I think there'll be some interesting things that we'll all want to find out about as we start preparing for tax filing year. So please go to the Chamber's website for that. And also go there for a upcoming Wake Up Escondido program that will start coming up this Friday, or the Friday, January 22nd, 8 a.m. A lot of things still going on. It's a new year, it's a new start. The Chamber's invigorated, ready to be able to help and be a resource for all businesses in not only Escondido, but in the full reach of the Chamber itself. So stay tuned. I want to thank Chris Cochran, our Marketing and Development Director, for his guidance and help in getting this done today, as well as David Zumaya. So we wish everybody a great week, and Escondido Chamber of Commerce is here to help and support, and we appreciate your support also. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.